As soon as I would hear my father come home from work, I would hear his van coming down the lane, and I would run outside and climb the dogwood tree in our backyard trying to get away from him. He would eventually find me. Running from him only made it worse. But when he would find me, I would get a beating and be taken to his bedroom, and the PVC pipe would come out. I was supposed to pull my skirt tight or pull it up, and sometimes I had to pull my underwear down, and I would be spanked on my bare skin.
That was a segment from today's episode, which discusses experiences of sexual, verbal, emotional, psychological, and physical abuse. So please listen with care. Hey guys, it's Angela with the Angela Rose Show, where we unveil stories of religious abuse. Today, I'm so honored to have my friend who traveled all the way from California with us today. And Jasiel is her name. Jasiel survived and escaped a extreme religious cult. And today, we're going to hear from her deeply vulnerable story. And then as Jasiel shares her story, you will notice sneak peeks of what her expertise is throughout her timeline. And then we'll also be ending with Jasiel's expertise and what she is presently practicing in her career. So I'm very excited. I'm very excited to hear from you, Jasiel.
Me too.
So, yeah, let's just dive right in and start with your family of origin.
Thank you so much for having me, Angela.
Sure.
So I grew up in a Amish Mennonite cult. My parents did not have their origin there. They would have been fairly non-religious.
Okay.
I believe my mother's side would have been Baptist somewhat. They would have gone to church on holidays and such, from what I know. I don't really know a lot of my father's background. I know he was in the military and moved around a lot. So they would have been introduced to like charismatic churches and just a consecutive, like deeper and deeper, more and more conservative until they reached Mennonites and Eastern Mennonites and then Amish Mennonites in the place where we were in the cult.
Okay.
I grew up in a family of 11. When I was born, I was the 8th child, and there was a boy born younger than me about 3 years later.
Okay. So when you were born, my question would be, were you born during the time frame your family was a part of the Mennonite Amish community?
Yes.
That was the time frame you were born into. Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
So, I would have been about 6 months old when they left that community and we moved to New York. I would have been born in Tennessee. We moved to New York when I was about 6 months old. And that's where they would have joined a fellowship church.
Okay.
And the beatings and the spankings and the physical abuse would have started very young. When I was a baby, you would often hear children being taken out during church and the screams and the crying. I obviously don't remember those moments, but I remember moments in New York where I would have been beaten for just silly things like saying the wrong words or not sharing a toy right away or not coming the first minute that I'm called. We were always taught that delayed obedience is disobedience. And so if you didn't come the exact moment you were called, that was a defying of authority.
So was, like you said, the punishment started at infancy, newborn like 6 months, you said, is when you started to get
Sometimes
physical
younger.
punishment. What would be the reason behind that? Like, why were they punishing an infant?
They believed that infants were rebellious and that their will needed to be broken.
A baby?
Yes. Yep.
That's just terrifying to me.
To look back on childhood with what I know now,
Yeah.
it breaks me to know how innocent a child is and then to remember how they were treated.
Right.
That alone is trauma in itself.
Oh my, yeah. The developmental stage of like a baby is just so crucial, which I'm excited to hear more about developmental stages through toddlerhood too, that you're
Yeah.
very versed on. Yeah. So how did that abuse affect you as a baby, attachment wise?
That's a really deep question. So, um, when a baby is 0 to 6 or 0 to 1 year, 0 months,
Mhm.
1 year,
Mhm.
they are working on trust versus mistrust, according to Eric Erickson.
Mhm.
And I was not able to develop a trust for my caregivers because that trust was constantly being ruptured through the abuse that I was experiencing.
Mm.
So, for example, when a baby would cry, they believed that sometimes they were just being rebellious and they didn't need anything.
And naturally, a newborn is crying because they're hungry, their belly hurts, just pure born dependent needs.
Right.
Wow. And it was interpreted as prideful to be crying or
So I heard somebody say one time that if your child is crying too long and you've done everything that you can do for them, then just give them a spanking because maybe they just need some regulation.
it's just terrible.
And what that does is it shuts them down.
Right. Right. Hmm.
And of course, they didn't use the word regulation.
Right.
That's what the thought was, is that they just needed to be shut down
Mhm.
because they didn't need anything else. When in reality, they needed comfort and co-regulation.
Yeah. Wow. So that first year is just incredibly impactful on your attachment when your caregiver is rupturing that constantly. It just really impacts attachment
Mm-hmm.
before you can really remember. Some of us don't really remember those years consciously, but
Mm-hmm.
we're impacted nonetheless in our nervous systems.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. Our pre-verbal experiences are very impactful to how we develop the rest of our years.
Mm.
So in New York is where I became an older sibling. That's where
Okay.
my younger brother was born. Um, I have some fun memories from New York, going out and tobogganing with my older siblings on our rock hill.
Mm.
That was a gorgeous memory with the sparkling snow and just the cold wind. It was really windy in New York. I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where I learned what butter tasted like. I
Okay.
sneaked a fingerful of butter one time.
Yeah.
I got away with it.
That was one impressionable memory.
Definitely. Yeah. And there's also a lot of harder memories. Um, that's where I have vivid memories of being taken to the bathroom and beaten with a PVC pipe to the point where I was screaming and trying to catch my breath, and a hand being held over my mouth and my nose,
Mm.
not able to breathe, trying to silence the screams that I had.
Hmm.
those memories are hard to remember because I panicked in those moments as a toddler.
For sure.
The very places that I wanted to turn for help and safety and protection were the
So you're telling me you're a toddler here?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. The very people I wanted to turn to were the people abusing me.
What confusion.
Yeah.
Now, at that point, would there been terminology of like religious perspective behind the physical violence? Like, did they do that out of like spare the rod, spoil the child teachings in your community? That's what I'm curious about.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there would have been a host of Bible verses to support the beatings.
Okay.
The main one was, the verse about if you spare the rod, your child will depart from you. I don't have it quoted quite exactly right, but
that was a popular one.
And the main thought process was that if you don't break the will of your child, then they're going to depart from you. They're going to go out in the world and be deceived when they grow up.
This is all driven out of fear of losing control.
Mm-hmm. I also remember my father over and over telling me that if he didn't spank me, that I would die.
Wow. There's no words for what that does to a child.
Yeah. I was just learning what death even meant.
Right. So how did this physical violence impact you as a toddler and your view of yourself in this world then, attachment-wise?
It created a lot of shame and doubt in me. I didn't trust myself at all. Very early on, I would have been doubting myself and looking to the people around me to see how they were responding and basing my actions and the things that I did and said off of how they were responding versus what I was learning internally about myself. So the main keys there are the development of shame and guilt versus trust, and learning to trust my relationship with the world.
It's incredible to me how early these conditionings begin and how young the shame is. I don't know. What's the word for it?
It's very young.
Yeah. Before you have words, because toddlers do not have words for these experiences. Pre-verbal is what you said. I like that wording. Wow. So where are you at age-wise now in the timeline? As we continue then, the toddler, you went over your toddler years.
Right. So toddler years would be childhood, around 4 to 10 years.
Okay.
And that covers several different developmental areas. We would have moved from New York when I was about 3.5 back to Tennessee.
Okay.
To a different cult, but they would have been within the same group of churches that considered themselves the only churches that could be interacted with.
Okay.
And there were, if I remember right, there were like 5 or 6 churches that were considered the group.
You were the ones that were serving God the correct way.
Right. I was taught that the people outside of our groups were, probably going to hell.
Okay, that was gonna be my next question is what was your under the conditioning and teaching, what was your perspective of the outside world at that point as a child? And you just said?
Very fear-based.
Okay.
I was afraid to associate with other people.
Right.
But my experiences were conflicting. Because as a child, one of my happiest memories is looking out the back van window at other people going down the road and waving to them and seeing them wave back to me and smile. Wow. It was like the highlight of getting out and going to church. And if I got caught, I got beaten.
Really?
Yeah.
So you had, I hear you saying, you had a glimpse of connection, emotion, their response to smile and acknowledgement. And yet that was stripped from you if you were caught experiencing that connection with someone on the outside.
Exactly.
And that's just terrifying.
It is.
Because what you described is such a natural desire to have relationship. Wow. And it just really describes conditioning too. Wow.
I think through that, it developed a very subconscious understanding in me that I did have power.
Okay.
Because even as a young kid, I always remember this feeling of curiosity about what was outside. Like what was out there, because something had to be out there beyond us.
Wow. That intuition.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about your years in Tennessee then.
Yeah. So we lived on a farm, a pig farm that was the bishop's, in a single wide mini barn combo. That was 11 people living in there, which was a lot.
Now, what do you mean by a mini barn combo?
So it had a mini barn attached to the back, and the door of the mini barn joined with the back door of the single wide.
Okay.
Yeah.
Small for a family of 11.
Yeah.
No kidding. Okay.
Yeah. 4 of my sisters lived in the mini barn.
Huh.
And then I slept with my oldest sister in another room in the house. And then there were 2 other bedrooms, one for my parents and one for my brothers.
Wow.
And it was a very interesting place because it was old and there were flying cockroaches and mice, and every time we would come home from church, usually somebody would screech and run.
Oh my dear.
Or flying cockroaches would come at you in the dark.
Scary.
I know.
Wow.
It was also a very controlling time. Our clothing and the place that we lived and the businesses, the cars we drove.
Tell me a little bit about that. Like, let's talk about your wardrobe a little bit. So, like, what did your church wardrobe look like?
So I wore a black bonnet and a white covering. The bonnet went over the covering, and it was supposed to cover all of your hair, front and back.
Really?
Yes. It didn't always.
And how old does a little girl start wearing the bonnet?
Goodness, I think within the first year, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes you would even see babies wearing coverings.
Like a newborn baby with a...
Yeah. Maybe not newborn, but like 6 months old.
Okay.
Something like that. It kind of was up to the parents, but there came a point in toddlerhood where if you didn't have a covering on your child, then there was a meeting with the bishop in the ministry.
Really?
Yeah. Our dresses would have been all very muted colors.
Okay.
Blue, brown, green.
Solid, I assume? Probably no floral.
Absolutely solid. Yes. And not too light.
Oh, like pastel could be a bit...
Pastel was no.
Too much Beauty, color.
even on babies.
Wow.
Yeah.
So dark was the key.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But black was a little bit too classy.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're at that that almost impossible place to get it right. Like too light is not okay, but black is too good. So we were like middle. Okay. Wow.
It was a fine line to walk.
Yeah, fine line for sure. And did you sew your own clothes or?
Yes, we sewed all of our clothes, even pajamas.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Fascinating.
And we wore dark socks,
Okay.
knee-high or tights.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to be opaque. If you could see through them, that was really bad.
Yeah.
You were showing part of your body.
Wow.
And that was 24/7. Oh, not quite 24/7. To bed, you did not need to wear them. But if you were working in the garden, you were supposed to wear the same cover-up that you would have if you were going out.
To like church or to town. Interesting.
Now, this was a little bit more strict in my family than some families in the church. I remember some families being allowed to go barefoot out in the garden. But in my family, we were supposed to wear knee-high socks and black tie shoes.
Wow.
When we were working outside.
And I'm sure that was hard, having rules, standards, whatever you want to call them, within your family that like the other church families wasn't the same. That can be difficult.
Yeah. I remember the standard book saying that you could only have a certain number of cows in your dairy farm.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
No.
They had the... Okay, I'm speechless. I have never heard that one. Yeah. There was the number of cows that needed to be in the church rule book.
Mm-hmm.
That's getting down to a lot of detail.
Yeah. Wow. Dictation was really big on just every area of life, like where you could go.
Area.
The kinds of places like restaurants, like they really discouraged you going to any restaurants, any fast food places.
Really?
Wow. If anybody saw you there, it's possible that you would have a meeting with the ministry about it.
Are you serious? So extreme, I just hear extreme isolation.
Mm-hmm.
Because if all of this is dictated, you don't have a lot of choices.
No.
Outside of that. Wow.
Conformity was the goal. Like they wanted us all to conform to one standard book. We were all supposed to look and act and be the same.
Interesting.
I remember often hearing the phrase of being non-conformed to the world.
They use that scripture verse as a weapon.
Mm-hmm. So the curtains in the house, the style of couches that you had, whether you had particle board floors or carpet, was all dictated in the standard book as well.
Really?
Yeah.
No
Carpet
kidding.
was not allowed.
Carpet was not allowed.
Right. And if you had a rug that was too big, that was considered carpet.
Wow. No kidding.
Yeah. The curtains couldn't be too frilly. They had to be just simple and plain, not too long, not bigger than the window.
Okay, this is anxiety inducing. Like down to the details of your curtains. That is like, it just sounds so exhausting to have to have it done right.
But when you know no different,
yeah,
it's simple. You just follow whatever you're told to do.
I hear you on that. It's all you knew. You went by the books.
Mm-hmm.
It was already decided.
It was already decided.
It was all decided.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And the points that we have hit earlier about developmentally, like not having individuality, learning to distrust the world, those things all play into this control and how simple it was for us to follow it.
Wow. It's true.
Like the grooming of that started very, very young as babies.
That's what's so complex about this form of trauma, but so important to be understood. Wow. This grooming begins at 6 months old.
Yeah.
And I know you had mentioned vehicles. What was the standard? So you did drive vehicles.
Yes.
You weren't driving a horse and buggy.
No.
Okay.
No, we did drive vehicles, but they were supposed to be, if I remember correctly, 10 years old.
Interesting.
They were not allowed to have radios.
Okay. Yeah.
And you weren't supposed to use the AC in them.
Now, was that considered luxury?
Yes, definitely luxury.
So I keep hearing like the voluntary poverty concept.
Very much so.
Could you describe that a little bit? Like some of the mindset, I feel like for those who aren't familiar with these types of rigid communities, it could be helpful to understand like the fact that air condition was considered a luxury and you know, some of these like soft carpet. What would have been the religious backup or belief that they had behind why such luxuries would be forbidden? And it would be like, tell me about that.
My verse is about simplicity, about not having outward ornaments. Other verses about gratification, self-gratification, and pleasure. You know, being twisted and misused to signify that we should deny anything that feels good to us, basically. If it feels good, it's sin.
Okay. So it was considered a sinful pleasure to experience something as simple as some of those luxuries. Wow.
And also worldly. Like those were things that they associated by somebody's definition to be worldly.
Right. I like how you said somebody's definition. And that says a lot too. Like someone got that idea and everyone follows through and complies to it.
So during my childhood in the single wide on the pig farm, my mother was bitten by a dog and she was sure that she had rabies and became very sickly. To my knowledge, she did not have rabies, but there were other factors of abuse in her own circumstances as well that likely played into it. I remember seeing her with black and blue bruises on her legs or her arms, usually hidden by her sleeves, but sometimes if she did dishes, I would see them, or if her skirt came up a little bit when she sat down, I would see them on her legs.
Wow.
And so the parenting that I experienced was mainly from my father.
Okay.
If I did something bad during the day, my mother would save up a list of the things and that got delivered to my father when he came home from work, and then I would get a beating for it.
Wow.
Now this plays into initiative versus guilt and development. So as a child, I would try taking initiative or having my own individuality with choices about play or maybe setting the table, how I did it. And those things would be seen as defiance of authority.
Wow. So you're describing your natural desire to just the natural developmental desire for a child at about what age will we be at here?
Around 3 to 6.
Okay. Wow. So your natural childish curiosity, initiative, this is a normal developmental stage for 3 to 6.
Mm-hmm.
And that was stripped from you as
Yeah.
an evil thing.
It was considered that I hadn't had my will broken if I did those things because I wasn't conforming to what I was being told.
Wow. Wow. That's a lot.
So that created a lot of fear and guilt in me.
Okay.
And as soon as I would hear my father come home from work,
Mm-hmm.
I would hear his van coming down the lane and I would run outside and climb the dogwood tree in our backyard trying to get away from him. And I still remember just the fear and dysregulation in my body.
Right.
Of shaking and cold sweats and just looking somewhere to hide. Looking for somewhere to hide.
Hmm.
He would eventually find me. And of course, running from him only made it worse.
Hmm.
But when he would find me, I would get a beating
Hmm.
and be taken to his bedroom. And the PVC pipe would come out. And I was supposed to pull my skirt tight or pull it up.
Hmm.
And sometimes I had to pull my underwear down and I would be spanked on my bare skin.
Hmm.
And of course, the pain was unbearable. And when I say beaten, I mean like more than 50 swats.
Wow. That's mind numbing. It's so inhumane.
And my body would often lose control. And I would wet myself and be standing in a puddle. And that was considered defiance.
This is so twisted.
And I would often get another beating for having wet myself because I was supposed to somehow have control of that.
Mm-mm. Wow. There's no words. No words for that. I feel like that part speaks. Like where you said it, your body's response to the abuse was considered defiance. It speaks for itself that your body was responding naturally.
So as I became older, beatings like this would have become harder and harder, more intense as I grew older. Because, of course, my will was showing more and more. It wasn't being broken. I remember sometimes coming out from a spanking and going right back into another spanking because I still had anger on my face. I was still in defiance.
So it's all about domination.
Mm-hmm.
I just keep hearing that extreme domination, defiant, anything defying, or what they considered was defiance, but it was really just, you're just a natural child looking for agency.
Exactly.
In this world.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Your very goodness is being used against you.
Mm-hmm. So around this time would have been when we moved to the house where my father had been building. Over the course of my childhood, I remember my grandparents coming and visiting us every now and then.
Hmm.
And that would have become less frequent when we moved.
Okay.
I'm not sure why. And in looking back at that, I've always wondered what they thought about the way we lived.
Now, would they have been considered worldly?
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. So, like, I remember comments about the jewelry that my grandma wore or her long fingernails that were painted. And I loved looking at them and playing with the jewelry and asking her questions about them. She was so snuggly. I would sit beside her and she would.
So that was a highlight to have your grandparents?
Yes.
Wow.
Definitely. They would bring gifts sometimes, and my grandpa always brought Tootsie Rolls. And the way he said it was so funny. We loved it. He would always share with us.
Wow. Do you feel like looking back, there would have been any red flags that your grandparents were picking up on with the abuse that was in your home?
Definitely.
Okay.
There's one example I remember when we were living at the single wide, where we were all sitting at the table, and one of my brothers had done something. I don't remember what it was. And he got taken back to the bedroom for a beating. And my grandma looked at my mom and said, "Isn't that a bit intense?" Or something along those lines.
Right.
But she looked very concerned. And I don't remember what my mom's I don't remember what my mom's response was. But it wasn't much, if I remember correctly. It was just kind of a pass off, and we started talking about something else. But I definitely think that they wondered if our lifestyle and the way we were living, the mindsets were extreme.
Right?
So yeah, when we were given gifts from my grandparents, they were always checked through to make sure there was nothing worldly in them.
Really?
I remember one time getting a pink diaper bag for my baby doll.
Yeah.
That had accessories in it, like diapers and a little bottle that had milk that flowed. You know those bottles?
Yes. Yeah.
And it was around Christmas time. And because we didn't celebrate Christmas, the gifts were taken away because they were too worldly and associated with Christmas. And of course, at the time, I didn't know anything about Christmas.
Wow. Your gifts were taken. That was too pleasurable, too much good.
No, they were pink.
I just cannot imagine how gut-wrenching that is for when you're just a child, and just the delight, the joy and the delight of a gift, and to have that just stripped from you like that.
I cried about that.
That's messy. Oh.
I was really disappointed that I didn't get to play with it.
Right.
It was a gift of my dreams.
No kidding.
I would often wake up from dreams where I had gotten something like colored pencils or glasses. I wanted glasses when I was little.
Yeah.
I just wanted to play with them.
Yeah.
But no, it was just worldly to want to put an accessory on your face that you didn't need.
Wow. What would you say As I think about that dynamic, it's just a dynamic in and of itself. What would you say you learned through this experience of having, like, just the sheer joy of a gift stolen from you like that, like, stripped from you, the dream, whatever the desires, like, what would
Mhm.
been the belief you learned as a little girl about good things or nice things,
Mhm.
or how did that impact your view of yourself?
I didn't deserve good things.
I didn't deserve good things. Wow. Hmm.
I wasn't worthy of them.
Hmm. Hmm.
Other people could have good things,
Okay,
but
that's
not
for other
me.
people, but not you,
Mhm.
right? Hmm.
That came out in the way that we celebrated birthdays, and
Hmm.
um birthdays were something that was very small and only done within the family.
Okay, tell
Um,
me more about a birthday.
so my memories of a birthday were like getting to pick which vegetable I wanted.
Really? Okay.
Um, Sometimes we had cake, but there usually wasn't a choice about what kind of cake or the color or anything like that. And we would give cards for birthdays, but generally there weren't gifts. Sometimes there were, but they were usually very small and just from the parents.
Well, I almost feel like I hear you saying they were choosing to minimize your connection to other people that might celebrate you.
That's one way to look at it for sure. The isolation was so much in our family, even surrounding like socializing.
Right.
Um, there's so many examples I could give of the isolation. Like after church, you were supposed to stay beside your parents. You weren't allowed to talk to anybody unless they were talking to your parents.
No kidding.
Children were to be seen and not heard.
Okay, so that's where that was coming in loud and clear.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Hmm.
When company would come over, um, I was allowed to ask them if they wanted a drink of water
Hmm.
and get them a drink of water, but otherwise I was supposed to stay out of the way and be quiet.
Okay.
And if I didn't, sometimes there was a beating.
To assert yourself or to relationally engage where you weren't to, you were punished for that.
Mm-hmm. My family was not very sociable.
Hmm.
Um, Usually it was people reaching out to us
Mm-hmm.
to get together for a meal or something. My parents rarely invited anybody over to our place. I remember Friday evenings was a designated evening in our church to go visit around the
Okay.
families. That or Sunday nights,
All right.
if there wasn't church. And I remember as a child just hoping and hoping and hoping that the phone would ring and
Yeah.
somebody would call us and ask if they could come over to see us.
Yeah. I smiled because that brought a memory up for me too. I
Mm.
remember listening for the phone rings. There's like for visitors. Yeah, like my hunger to connect. It was a joy to be able to have a, a family come over or go visit. It
Mm-hmm.
was huge.
Mm-hmm.
But I hear you say your family didn't host. You mostly would go away if you did have that connection.
Mm-hmm.
So lonely, really lonely.
Very lonely. Very lonely and feeling like I didn't belong anywhere. Because I didn't have that attachment with my parents.
Right.
And I didn't receive much physical affection from my siblings either. I would have been the youngest girl.
Okay.
And there were 2 boys on either side of me. And so I wasn't very close to any of my sisters. And the boys, of course, wanted to do their own thing most of the time. And the stereotyping of gender was very big. And so I felt a lot of disconnect with my brothers.
Right. Give me an example of what the gender stereotyping looked like in your family or the culture.
So at church, you weren't even supposed to look at the opposite side of the room.
Okay.
And they sat separately. So I know it's common in the churches I go to now. We all sit together, the men and the women.
Right. Families are together.
Right. Families are together too. But the way that I grew up, the men sat on one side and the women sat on the other side of the church.
And you couldn't be caught looking over to that gender.
No.
No kidding.
Ow.
It just makes it so awkward too. That tension.
Very awkward. Yeah.
It creates a tension immediately.
Like I remember in school, I was afraid to even look at the boys in my class because I wasn't supposed to look at them in church. Right. So like when we were all gathered around the table doing a school study, I was like, just kept my eyes down at my papers and was like trying to do my own thing.
Right. You've been trained that way.
I was definitely afraid of men in general, not just because of the way my father treated me, but because of the stereotyping of and stereotyping is maybe not the word I'm looking for, but the separation and the determination of roles between genders.
Right. I hear you. The fear of the fear of gender, specific gender roles can be so big in religious cultures. It just is a whole subject. It's a big one.
I was taught growing up that if a man touched a woman, it was sin.
Right. Wow. What a toxic, fearful way to live.
So after we moved to the new house, life changed a little bit. We had more space.
Okay.
So we had a huge garden. We had goats and chickens, and all of those places were pretty spread out on our land. The chickens were up a hill a little ways, and the goats were down a hill a little ways. So it was my job to feed the chickens, and they were up, I would guess, about a quarter mile from the house, up a hill. And we had raccoons that would canvass the area and get into our feed barrels, and eat our chickens, and scare the goats. And one vivid memory is being forced to go feed the chickens in the dark. We also had wild dogs and hyenas around the area.
Okay.
And we would often wake up in the morning to find wild dogs on our front porch. So it was pretty scary to go that distance all alone and in the dark.
Yes.
and feed the chickens without a light. Like, I would never expect my child to do that.
Right. It's terrifying.
Yeah. We were also very isolated, so we lived what some people would call off the edge of the earth.
Okay.
What company would joke about when they tried to find us.
Like, physically speaking, not even mentioning the emotionally and speaking. So your physical location was considered off the edge of the earth.
Yeah.
Wow.
Way back in the woods, there were 2 people who lived somewhat close to us, but the one I believe would have been around a mile away, and the other one would have been over the top of the hill.
Interesting.
So definitely not visible from our place. And you couldn't hear anything because of the trees. So very isolating, very protective for the abuse that we were experiencing.
Yes.
We had a huge garden, like I mentioned, and we did a lot of hard work as kids, younger than what you might expect, like carrying 50-pound bags of feed up the hills at, 8, 9, 10 years old.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Carrying 5-gallon buckets of water out to the garden a good quarter mile away. Hoeing long rows of vegetables, picking them.
It's not okay for children, you know?
Yeah.
You really think about that. Like, it's devastating to put a 7, 8-year-old child through that. That the weight of that kind of work that even can be brutal for an adult.
And breaks were not a thing. You were considered weak if you took a break.
Okay, so what would work ethic requirements look like nonstop? Like you work without a break.
Absolutely.
Working was highly admired or appreciated.
That's where you got approval.
Okay. That was one thing you could do. You were allowed to do. You had to do.
Exactly.
Wow.
And it made me feel powerful to be able to work hard. It was something I was in control of.
I see.
To some degree.
Right? Makes sense.
As I got older and the abuse increased, the grooming increased, work became very hard because mentally I was so shut down that my body didn't even want to function.
Yeah.
So my father would often make lists for me of work to do, and I would not be able to complete them. And of course, there were consequences for that.
What a trap.
After we moved is when I remember the sexual abuse starting. After the grooming had increased. I don't remember the very first time. I have a lot of gaps in memory from the traumas that I experienced. My body had lots of different responses, and one of them, I believe, was wetting the bed. And that happened up until the day that I left.
How old would you say you'd have been if you had to guess when the sexual abuse started?
Somewhere around 6 years old. Yeah. So in the mornings, I would wake up early for school. and I would have to gather all of my wet things and take them down to the basement to get washed. And on my way back up, my father would be waiting for me in the dark in the living room. And he would call for me. And if I didn't come, that would be a beating.
It's just terrible.
And if I did come to him, he would take me to the bathroom and wash me and abuse me sexually and sometimes rape me. I've dealt with a lot of guilt around that. Because I was taught that to touch the opposite sex was sin. But I was also taught that by the way I was treated, that if I came to somebody who could do something about it, that it would get turned around on me. Wow. Because whenever I would have a spat with my brothers and I would go to my parents about it, I would always be the one getting in trouble. I say always.
Right.
The times that I remember.
Right. Falsely accused.
Yeah.
Taken the beating for nothing.
I remember my father asking me if what he was doing felt good, like somehow it was supposed to. And I remember lying and saying that it was fine.
Right.
And looking back now, I understand why I did that.
Right.
But in the moment, I dealt with so much grief and guilt because I was betraying myself. But I felt responsible at the same time.
And you're a child. A little child.
Yeah.
It's a crime. True crime. And no resources. And due to the grooming and the conditioning, everything's set up to be.
I had nowhere to go.
Right.
I remember sitting on the steps, coming up from the basement, trying to be so quiet so my father wouldn't hear me, and seeing the light on in my mom's bedroom right beside the basement door. She could hear me. And I almost went and told her a couple times, but I was so afraid of being found guilty.
The amount of, I just keep hearing again and again, the amount of, if I can find the right terms for it, but the amount of psychological and mental and emotional programming that was instilled is mind-numbing before this specific abuse is. There are no words for this. Like, not options. I just keep hearing that again, and the lack of options is terrifying. Again, I guess that just really describes grooming.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He had made sure there was nowhere for me to turn.
Mm.
And at the same time that he had control over me.
Mm.
From psychologically to emotionally to physically.
Mm.
Spiritually.
Right? And then just the tangle mess of that. It's another level. The view of God.
Mm-hmm. I was supposed to obey my parents no matter what.
Because they hear from God directly. And it's all you know. You're a kid.
Yeah.
You just hear what you're told.
Mm-hmm.
What a sick, sick view of the one that our oxygen is dependent on.
Mm-hmm.
Or, yeah, that we're not only dependent on our parents as children, but like our life and breath, a higher power, like just the complexity of that just is, again, is also mind numbing. Wow.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It brings back memories of the ways that we were conditioned mentally.
Mm-hmm.
Like being lined up on a bench or the couches and being ranted at for hours on end about things that we weren't doing, things that the Bible said we should do, and how we were supposed to obey our parents. And reading the Martyr's Mirror every Sunday afternoon. And as a child, being expected to sit through that awake.
Wow.
Just the programming of that.
Yeah.
We were supposed to be suffering, and we weren't suffering enough.
I hear like it's like the high goal is to, next to this righteous, whatever, religious way of living, is suffering. Like suffering goes along with that. This is a good thing.
Right?
Like that's part of the belief. I hear.
Consider it all joy.
Consider all joy when you suffer.
Mm-hmm.
Again, another scripture verse that was used literally to control. And wow, I'm just speechless.
So during all of this, I was in school and my father was on the school board at the school where I went to, which was the church school. It was very small. There were 2 teachers. One teacher did first grade through 4th or 3rd, and then the other teacher did 4th grade through 8th grade.
Okay.
And that's as far as schooling went.
Hmm.
They never went past 8th grade because they considered that to be worldly, too much education. You would know too much and become deceived.
Again, there's the isolating you from getting an education, because an education could give you the tools to find an escape from, yeah, wow,
Yeah.
another control tactic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Often on the way to school, because my father was on the school board, he had more leniency with getting away with things. He would often keep me out of school to abuse me. He would drop the rest of the siblings off at school and then take me on a ride. And it could be for any number of reasons. It could be because I walked past a piece of trash on the way out to the car. or it could be because when he was talking to me that morning, I was looking into the sun in order to look into his eyes, and I wasn't able to keep my eyes open.
Mm-mm.
And of course, I would tell him, the sun's shining in my eyes. And he would require me to keep my eyes open and look at his eyes while he was talking to me.
So you're saying him being on the school board gave him more power.
Definitely more power.
Mm-hmm. Power to abuse.
And power for people to believe him.
Wow.
People looked up to him. They thought he was...
People looked up to him.
Yeah. They thought that he was somebody who was knowledgeable. So much so that sometimes he was on the edge. He was almost too knowledgeable. So this also created a dynamic that when I became sick with a UTI, I was out of school for months at a time, and there were no concerns raised. I remember when the UTI started, I was afraid that it was because of the abuse, the sexual abuse. And so I told my mother that he was washing me down there and using too much soap.
Mm-hmm.
And she did nothing about it.
What a betrayal. You're the child, and you have awareness around what you're experiencing, and yet no one else is seeing. Your mother's not seeing the red flags. You're not at school for months. I mean, you're suffering hell alone, 100% alone. And how people can't see the red flags, I think, is just how can you not see a child suffering?
Yeah. There's a part of me that wonders if maybe my mother just didn't connect the dots. But at the same time, I told her so plainly.
Yeah. That's like a red flag, what you described,
Yeah.
You were concerned, and you took that to her about the medical condition. No care, no responsibility taken.
There was no care for a while, and then finally they took me to my father's doctor friend. And they both went with me. And I remember the doctor asking me if it hurt when I peed. And I said no, because I was used to lying about what I felt because it wasn't safe.
You would have paid a price.
I would have.
You knew that. Right. Wow.
And even while I was telling him, I was having incredible cramps in my back and in my belly because of how far the UTI had gone. I couldn't use the bathroom without spasming in pain. And after the doctor's appointment was over, I remember my father sitting there talking with his doctor friend and my mom standing there beside them. I have no clue what they were talking about, but I remember passing out and being taken out to the van. I woke up on the seat with a pillow.
It's just so concerning that the doctors even, weren't seeing the signs. But again, your abuser's in the room, and it gets manipulative quickly.
And I think I knew that I shouldn't tell the doctor, like cognitively, that I was conscious of the fact that I shouldn't tell him, because after the mornings where my father would abuse and rape me, he would sometimes ask me if my sisters had wondered where I was. And I always told him no, because I didn't want him to know that they asked. I felt like I had to protect that little bit. And so when it came to the doctor, I knew that that would not be acceptable.
I hear you.
Looking back on moments like this is really sobering to me. The reality of what happened, and the fact that I was a child and I did not have responsibility in the abuse.
It's profound.
I think that's just really important for survivors to know.
Right? Zero responsibility. Children are innocent. So much stolen. Is there something you'd like to say if, someone's listening can relate to experiencing child sexual abuse? Is there something you would specifically like to say to them?
Yeah, I believe you.
Wow.
I believe you, and I want you to trust yourself enough to believe yourself. And that can be a process. But it starts sometimes with other people believing us.
Wow. It's powerful. The very thing that didn't exist for you. Being taken seriously and believed and protected, Wow.
So during the time that I had the UTI, my father was still abusing me. And I remember thinking to myself, this is happening every day. Why? Like, how can I make it stop? And I suffered from a lot of nightmares, just trying to escape my father, trying to find help. Nightmares about the abuse that I was experiencing. And after some meds and IVs from another doctor friend, I finally went back to school. And of course, I was behind on schoolwork and dissociating And what I mean by that is I would sit there at my desk, staring at the paper, not even knowing what my thoughts were.
Right.
My background environment fading away, not aware of my body, to the point that my teacher would be beside me calling my name and I would suddenly jump as if he hadn't been there. Not too long after this incident, I was probably around 10 years old. One day, my family came to pick me up from school. And I noticed that they were all wearing dark clothes, like Sunday clothes, and their best bonnets. They were all dressed up, and everybody was with in the van. And I asked them what was happening. And I believe they told me something like, we have to go somewhere. And so, of course, you don't ask questions. You just do what you're told. And so I got in the van, got in my seat, and we left, and we didn't go home. We went into town to a place that I had never been before. And it was a blue and white sign on the building that said CPS.
Wow.
Later, I would learn that that stood for Child Protective Services. I sat in the van for a long time while different ones of my siblings were taken into the building one at a time. Later, I would find out that they were being interviewed and asked questions about the abuse because somebody had reported my father as being an abuser.
Someone reported, wow.
Now, at this time, my two oldest siblings would have been married.
Okay.
And the next two siblings had run away. And so my father was losing control over the information and where it went. And somebody who knew my siblings found out about the abuse and reported it.
Now, how did that impact you at that period then?
So when we came home, my father wasn't there. We sat down at the supper table and nobody would look at each other. Nobody would say anything. It was silence. I felt so alone. I felt so scared. I didn't know what was going on.
You needed some communication.
Yeah.
Didn't exist.
I couldn't make sense of what was happening. Eventually, my father came home while we were eating, and he got his briefcase and stood at the end of the table and said, I'm going to the minister's house where he was going. And he didn't come home that night, which wasn't that odd because he would often be gone for days on end. Nobody knew where he was. But he showed up the next day, and he was different. He was subdued. The whole family was subdued.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was just very silent. Not long after that, the church became involved, and my father was excommunicated because of the abuse. And of course, there were consequences from the law for my father as well. He was put on probation with certain requirements. One of those was that he was not able to sleep in the house anymore. He had to be a certain number of feet away from the house. And so eventually he moved a mini barn down on our land outside the range of the feet that was required by probation. And that's where he slept at night, and then he would come up to the house during the day.
Wow. How old were you at this period?
I would have been around 11, I believe.
Okay.
So when my father was excommunicated, he took us out of school. And so I never finished 7th grade. When we were taken out of school, we had a few Rod and Staff published books at our house. And he would make lists of things for me to do. But because of the dissociation, I never was able to do any of them.
Right.
I would receive a beating when he got home, and then that was that. Nobody checked my work. And after a while, that just kind of fizzled out. And he would make work lists for me, and I would do that instead. The physical abuse during this time was very intense. It was as if he was channeling his abuse from the ritualized sexual abuse into more physical aspects because it was harder to track. One instance, I remember being out by the shop with him, and he became very angry. I didn't know why he was angry with me. And he took me behind the shop and grabbed the nearest pipe, which was about as big around as this mug. And more than 6 feet long. And he whacked me with the pipe until I fell over. And I remember begging for my life, telling him I was so sorry, I didn't know what I did, but that I was so sorry for it. I remember thinking I was gonna die, and then blacking out.
It's just no words for this.
So it can be expected then that the bruises I saw on my body were very large. I would see in the mirror bruises on my shoulders, the backs of my arms, my buttocks, my thighs, sometimes even on my sides. It was painful to sit. There would be welts on my body that would bleed sometimes. And I thought that was just normal. It didn't even cross my mind that I should tell somebody.
Mm. This is the scary part. When you don't have anything to compare it to, it is normal, huh?
Mm-hmm.
To a child. There's no other outside mirror of how others are living, right?
Right.
Mm.
So eventually, because of the excommunication, my father decided to go to a different church.
Mm.
And so we started going to a more liberal church, which my sisters who had left went to.
Okay.
It was a very interesting dynamic because he didn't like my sisters, but he wanted to be close to them. And I wonder if he felt threatened. And that was his way of trying to control the situation.
I hear ya. Yeah.
I was not allowed to have conversations with other people, even though I was at the age where people in that church were sitting away from their parents. I always had to sit with my mom. But I was glad that I could at least sit with her and I didn't still have to sit with my dad. I sat with my dad until I was about 9 or 10 years old.
Okay.
Which, in that setting, is really old. The girls usually sit with their moms earlier than that.
Wow.
But I was told I had to wait until I was good enough. Eventually, the next two sisters left. And when that happened, I was the only girl at home. And so the expectations of food being on the table, the house being cleaned, somebody going to work to help my father and brother with sharpening knives. That was his business.
Okay.
Those things all fell on me.
Wow.
Because my mother was not functioning well. You could usually find her back in her bedroom or in the sewing room sitting down sewing something. So when my sisters left, my father switched churches because there was talk about what was happening and why the children were leaving. He just would jump from church to church. Finally, we landed at a church called Rutherford. Rutherford Mennonite, maybe, was what it was called. We referred to it as the Rutherford Church. And there was no communication with my sisters. We only had house phones at that point.
Okay.
And my father had a hidden cell phone. But nobody was supposed to use it and nobody was supposed to know it existed. And of course, nobody in the house used the phone except for my father. The control that my father had during those days was evident through placing recorders around the property to record me and my mother and brothers.
Wow.
I remember the day that I found it. I was cleaning the top of the refrigerator. It was a place that got dusty and had all kinds of stuff piled on top of it, and here was this little black box with a red light blinking on it. And that night, after I was in bed, I heard something that sounded like my voice. And so I crept out of my bedroom and hung down there was like a cutout where the stairs was and a balcony. So I hung over the balcony and looked, and there he was, sitting at the table listening to the recorder, and I was talking. And the betrayal that I felt, yes, in that moment. Wow. I remember shaking from head to toe. It had never crossed my mind that he would be listening to me when he wasn't there. I didn't even know a recorder existed.
No kidding. Wow. Wow.
Fear,
Right.
was just through and through.
Wow.
In every aspect.
Terror.
There was no way I could escape him in any way.
It's just more control on top of control.
So one day, as we were attending Rutherford, the ministry wanted to have a meeting with my parents because rumors of the abuse were circling. And they wanted to talk to my father. And so me and my two brothers were left at a place close to the church. And while we were there, I went to go use the bathroom in the basement. So I found the phone and I remembered an important person's number. And so I called them and I begged them to come get me. And of course, wow, not only was I afraid, but people who knew him were afraid.
Wow. Wow. No kidding.
And so the people were very hesitant about coming to get me and getting involved.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
They told me that if they were gonna come, they would be there at dusk. And they would flash their lights for me.
Okay.
And I waited and I waited, and I went out around dusk, about the time they said they would be there. And they never came. But my father found me. And the look in his eyes was like he wanted to kill me. I had never seen that look that intensely before. Fortunately, we were inside the church around other people. And so he wouldn't do anything there. and he had a whole hour to calm down on the way home. But when we got home, everything was silent until we got inside, and he sat us all down and gave us a ranting to about why family matters stay in the family. He had nothing to prove. He had no way of knowing exactly what I was going to do. He just saw me away from my mother, looking out the window, waiting when nobody else was around. No kidding. I also had a bag of clothes in the back of the van that he found. And I told him that it was just so that I could change in the afternoon. And again, he didn't believe me, but he had no way to prove me wrong either.
Right.
So I survived it. Well, and that felt like a huge feat to me.
Okay.
Enough that gave me empowerment to try again.
Wow. You were preparing your next escape.
I remember writing a letter that never got mailed to somebody important, telling them that if I never showed up, if they never saw me again, that I loved them and that they should come looking for me. Because I was that afraid that something would happen to me. There were points during this time where I struggled with a lot of suicidal thoughts because there felt like there was no way to escape.
Right.
I would often go out to the road and think about what it would be like if a truck came over the hill and I was standing in the middle and just didn't move. And that's what can happen when somebody is so stuck.
Yeah.
And there's no escape.
Yes.
Our minds will do what they have to try to find a way to escape.
Right.
I was taught that was sin.
Right. Your natural trauma responses were considered sinful. Brings back the complexity of the trap and the need to escape.
The next time that we were back at that same place, my parents were with me. And I asked to go to the bathroom again. And I took the phone into the bathroom with me, and I called the same number. And again, I begged them to come get me, that I was so scared, that I needed to see people that I knew and that I loved. And they again told me that they probably would come this time, but they weren't sure. that time, one of the girls of the family where I was came and found me and told her mom, and her mom came and talked to me. And I told her about the abuse. Just a very small detail. And she seemed concerned. But she didn't tell my parents.
There was no action taken.
No. Thankfully, she didn't tell my parents. I begged her not to. And I didn't tell her why I was on the phone. So we went to church that evening. And at about 8 o'clock, I got up from the place where I was sitting in the back with my friend because we had came in late. And I went out to the door of the church house. And in the dusk, I saw the lights blinking for me. Wow. Somebody had came for me.
I can't imagine how that felt.
So I ran with everything I had in me.
Yeah.
And I collapsed into the back of that car and sped out of the church parking lot. I remember the driver continually checking the mirror to make sure nobody was following us. And a ways down the road, we pulled over at a gas station and looped behind the gas station to make sure nobody was following us. I stayed in hiding for quite a while because nobody could know that I had left or where I was, for fear my father would find me. And for fear that the people who had came and picked me up would get in trouble with the law for kidnapping, even though that's not what they did.
Right.
And the years after were full of so much trial and error and re-traumatization as I searched for help and learned how to tell my story.
All right, Jasiel, tell us a little bit about what you do today.
So currently I am a psychology student. I am working on my BA, which is a bachelor's in psychology.
Okay.
And I'm about one semester into that. Really enjoying it. It's a lot of work and a lot of individual self-work, not just educational work.
Okay.
I'm also a trauma-informed coach.
Okay.
And so I have clients that I work with who have backgrounds of religious and abusive trauma.
Wow. No one better to understand than someone who's experienced it. What would you say, back to your studying, what parts would you say you enjoy studying the most? Which parts of psychology gets you most excited?
The places that give me tools. The places that are actually growing me, like learning about the different stages of development. I've mentioned those some in our talk for a few of the ages.
Right.
And learning about how we respond to trauma and the kinds of tools that we can use in healing. How important co-regulation is. And regulation, learning what that looks like. That it's not just a flat, no feeling state, but it's a whole range of emotions. Learning about the different parts of myself and being able to recognize the different parts of other people.
How empowering. So, the parts where you do the hands-on with your coaching career right now, you're presently working with your informed knowledge and experience and empathy. What parts feel the most rewarding when you're working with someone and leaning into their story with care? What's your favorite part in that work of the recovery?
I would say seeing the effects of co-regulation.
Okay. Tell me a little bit more about what that looks like then.
Yeah.
Co-regulation.
Co-regulation is me embodying regulation. Me embodying regulation that is contagious to the other person. That is validating of their experiences and allows them to be their own person in a safe space.
Wow. So I hear individuality, validation.
Those things are very regulating to the nervous system.
Wow.
And just that, that physical embodiment of safe space being held for you.
Yes.
Allows somebody to come down to a place of rest.
Wow.
A place of safety where they don't have to be afraid of themselves or the emotion that they feel, but knowing that there's containment.
So yeah, I hear in that more of a that's so embodied, and that's something that can be gifted beyond knowledge. As much as knowledge is so important.
Yes,
that's an experience with both and really. Both and. Yeah. It's fascinating.
I would say that experience is a big part. And having the knowledge to know how to manage yourself in a healthy way and work with your different parts inside is very key in being able to provide co-regulation for somebody.
Wow.
It's like the question some people will ask whether street smarts or book smarts is the best, when in reality, together,
Wow.
the best.
Interesting. It's a good explanation of it. Wow. I feel like there's a huge need for safe care and understanding around recovering from specifically religious abuse in cult environments. Is so needed. It's so complex.
It is very complex.
And I really appreciate what you bring in this, through sharing your story and awareness, the experienced awareness, the understanding, the empathy that you embody is incredibly profound and so needed. So yeah, I'm just excited that we can share knowledge like this from your story, and for our guests that are hearing, they can book with you coaching, right?
Yeah.
What would, if someone would be interested in working with you and doing a consultation in their own recovery, how would they contact you?
They can contact me at Facebook through DMs.
Okay.
Or through email at jasielcaroline@gmail.com.
Okay. And your Facebook would be under Jasiel Caroline, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You can give Jasiel a follow on Facebook and connect with her there. She shares really informative content as well. I always enjoy what you have to share.
Oh, good.
At least some wonderful trauma-informed, clarifying words, which is so huge in feeling less alone.
So the trauma-informed piece of my coaching is built around safety, trust, collaboration, and empowerment.
Wow.
Those are the main pillars. There are other pillars that I use as well, but those are the 4 main pillars that I build my coaching on.
Wow.
That are trauma-informed.
Okay.
They allow agency for my clients and identity.
Some of my favorite words. Wow. Yeah. Agency, individuality, identity. Huh. Wow. So needed.
Those are some of the things that were stripped from us.
Exactly. And vital for our recovery.
Absolutely.
Wow.
We need safety first to be able to even discover those things.
It's huge. Wow.
And through safety, trust is built. And when those things are in place, collaboration can happen between me and the client. It's not one-sided. It allows the client to discover that they have the answers inside of them. And that's one of the things that makes me so excited in coaching is, listening to a client and hearing the little nuggets of trust they have in themselves and being able to shine a light and highlight and build that trust. That trust that's already there. It's already a part of them. And that's something that we doubt as survivors, that there's anything good in us.
Right. What an element. Wow. It's profound.
And that's the empowerment piece.
Yeah. So tell me what you have your degrees in currently.
So currently I have an AA, which is an Associate of Arts, 2 years in community college in psychology. And I also have an AA in social sciences.
Wow. What an accomplishment.
Yeah.
You worked so hard for that. I cannot imagine how good that feels.
Those were some hard years,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
doing double degrees like that
Yeah.
took a little bit of planning,
Yeah.
but feels really rewarding.
Oh, I can only imagine. Wow. And I know you're working towards the goal. Do you want to share what your goal is long term?
Sure.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
So my goal long term is to graduate with a PsyD,
Wow.
which is a doctorate in psychology,
Mm.
with a clinical aspect.
Mm.
And so with that, I would be able to become a psychologist.
Oh, girl. The sounds in my ears. I
Yeah.
just love it. I get so excited.
Yeah.
And you will do it because I know you and you will. And I can't wait to celebrate that. You are well on your way.
Yeah.
Wow.
On the way, I plan to become a marriage and family therapist as well.
Wow.
And hopefully get some specific certifications around religious abuse and domestic violence.
Sure. Which is so neat. You can really do these hands-on elements as you're studying the next couple years. You'll be like practicing in the field and wow, growing your knowledge in your career. Wow. Incredible. Incredibly inspiring. Wow.
Yeah. It's an ongoing work, both professionally and individually. I probably will see a therapist for the rest of my life because it's something that's healthy for me. It's good to have a safe place to be able to process, considering the things that I went through as a child and adolescent.
Sure.
Being able to have somebody else's input and perspective in my healing is really important to me. To not do this alone.
Wow. I've heard it before. In short, people will mention every good therapist has their own therapist. And I hear that and what a healthy and again safe embodied way to live as someone who is helping people is that example of you just being human and the invitation to be human.
Yes.
And I love hearing that. Just wow. Super. Again, really just does build trust in relationships.
My therapist tells me you are your own first client.
Huh. That's fascinating. I haven't heard that term before. I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Huh.
Growing me is part of being healthy for other people.
Wow.
And health and safety are paramount to me in my relations with other people and the boundaries that I have for myself.
Wow. Thank you, Jasiel. I'm deeply honored that you shared your story with us today. I have learned so much from you. I look up to you. I am speechlessly inspired. I can't put into words how much you do. Your life really inspires me and your wisdom. And I'm just honored to have been able to hear from. And I've learned a lot from you today. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you for having me. It's been
My
an
pleasure.
honor to be here.
My pleasure. Can we end with a hug?
Yes, absolutely.